Welcome to It Starts With Courage podcast with Kat and Jen. What is it? It's everything. Everything you want in life starts with courage. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal, but it's the courage to continue that counts. That's a quote by Winston Churchill. So over the last couple of months, I don't know if anyone out there has had a time in their life like this. Jen, I don't know that you've had a time like this, but I've literally felt like I've just been in a season of failure. And that is everything I've been planning, things I've been wanting to achieve have just fallen through. Things just don't seem to be working out. And, you know, at some points you find yourself, or I find myself, feeling like a failure. And as I've been going through this for, the last couple of months, as I've said, I've really just learned and found that life is trial and error, right? In order to see any kind of progress, there has to have been some sort of failure. There's no achievement or growth without failure. And I've really just come to this point, which is what I want to talk about today, learning to fail more. This will make sense in a bit. Failing better, as well as embracing failure. And, I've got 4 points that I wanted to talk about today that can help you overcome a season of failure. You may be a new mom out there and just feel like things aren't just... You just feel like you're failing, or, you're just not sure of what you're doing. You may have started a new job, just whatever it is. And I just really want to talk about embracing that failure. But to start off with, Jen, have you ever had a season of failure, a time where you just felt like things weren't going right? And I guess, how did you even overcome, or what did you do with that?
No, I've never failed.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's the episode for today, guys. I will see you next week.
Of course. I look back and I think of failure in all kind of different ways. Yeah. Failure in, I didn't say the right thing, or I could have done that better. It doesn't have to be like this fall on your flat failure face, like big. I think when people hear the word failure, they just are thinking something like huge or big. But you're right now kind of talking about like things just not working out. Yeah. And I use this example, and I don't know if I've used it before on the podcast, but when you're growing businesses. In my real estate business, I have failed a ton of different ways. Mm-hmm. And when it talks about like lead generation and getting leads, I always tell new agents, you come and ask me before you go spend money on something, because I've tried it all and I can tell you what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. And, when I started this business, the Workflow Shop, with my 2 other partners, mm-hmm. I had run my real estate business for 10 years. Yeah. And so like when you're starting a business, you think, oh, this is the way to do something. Mm-hmm. And then you realize it's not. And then you do something different and it works. And then you do something wrong and then you have to change it and you do something wrong. Well, in business, a lot of these tasks that we're trying to do, we can learn from each failure. Yeah. And so when I started this new business with my friends and they're like, oh, well, I think we can do the taxes ourselves. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hell no, we can't. I'm not getting into tax trouble because we did it wrong and it's impossible to read the tax code. Mm-hmm. So like that was one step in failure that I may have tried to do that on my own before. Yeah. That I realized like, nope, that's something that's worth doing differently. Yeah. And so I feel like it's kind of like playing a video game, right? Like I don't play a lot of video games, but when I was little, I would play Super Mario Brothers, and I would, the first level that you go on, mm-hmm. you're like, the first time you go, you die and you die and you die and you die. But then you die, and then you realize, oh, I can't go that way. So the next time you go another way,
this way,
and next time you go, and so the first time it for you to pass a level may take you hours because you have to fail all these different ways,
figure it out.
But then you get quicker and quicker, and you go further and further. And so that's kind of how I look at failure. It's kind of like a video game.
It's a learning process.
You're going to know, as long as you learn from it, you're going to be able to take that lesson into your next venture, and you're going to be able to go farther. You're going to be able to go faster, and hopefully you reach your goal. But if you don't, you still went farther than you did last time, and you still learned something from it.
You know what I love about that is I think just listening to what you've said, you've kind of touched on, I've got 4 points today that I want to discuss on all 4 points. I'm
pretty good then.
I mean, yeah, you're all right. Outside of those, I think what I heard from your story as well is, and you know what I've realized is that you can't learn from somebody else's failures.
True.
Sometimes you have to go through that failure, that experience yourself to learn that same lesson. It's different when someone tells you don't do this because you don't actually understand the implications of why not to do it. So I'm not always saying go and try and fail yourself all the time when somebody says don't do it. Sometimes listen, open your ears, friends. But the very first one that I want to talk about is being honest about your failures. I think that failure sometimes is hard to digest because we keep it hidden, right? I mean, how many times do you go to a dinner party and you start off with, oh, did I tell you about the time that I went to invest here and basically all my money was eaten up? We don't.
Yeah.
Right? We always just try and, I guess, show the best.
That's like, I just closed on a house a couple of months ago, and my client I was telling him a story about this couple living in one of our houses that the insurance company is paying the mortgage. And so we're getting more for it.
Yeah.
And he was like, you're just so lucky all the time. And I was like, no, you just don't hear about all the bad things that didn't work out.
There you go. Now imagine you led with all the failures and all the things that went wrong. I suppose even when I think about my next point, which is consider your failures as new beginnings, right? Sometimes when things don't work out, it opens a new door. A perfect example for this for me is when I was trying to buy a house when we first met. Okay, guys. So,
worst client ever. Worst client ever.
Basically, I had Jen go around with me to about 40 houses or so. And each one I had this strong poker face. I was a meanie.
You were.
I was a meanie.
I thought she hated me.
No, I just, that's life. That was so 2000 and something. But basically, obviously in the US, I was on a weird kind of visa. It's a visa that basically is for trainees. It really doesn't allow you much flexibility. And I went through about 3 different mortgage companies or brokers who essentially said, no, you don't have this piece of paper. You don't have this piece of paper. So everything just said no. Everything said no. And I could have got to a point where I was just like, oh, okay, never mind. Until in the end, being that I'd become such great friends with Jen because we went to see so many houses together, she pointed me towards somebody else who was like, oh, well, they may be able to help. And that was the start of something new. Now, if I want to apply for a different mortgage and, things are just so much easier. So don't always consider your failures as the end. Try and consider them as the beginning of something new. So moving on to the third point, seeking guidance, sharing your failures with other people. Sometimes, as I said in the beginning, the very first point, we try and keep our failures hidden. Look for someone you trust to share these failures with. They may have experienced something similar. They may have some advice to offer. Just as you said in real estate with starting the workflow shop, because you've had so many failures, I don't mean to sound like you've had so many failures.
Oh, yeah.
But essentially you have the experience, right? That you're able to guide others if they are willing to say, hey, this is what I'm actually struggling with. I want to say that it's okay to ask for help. Sharing those failures can be so important when it comes to moving forward. How do you move forward and not just dwell and ruminate over that failure? And finally, step number 4, at least what I like to look at my 4th step, is accepting your limitations.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes things fail for a reason.
Yep.
Because you need to change your plan. You need to change your strategy. It's important to reevaluate, see what works, what can you actually do and what can't you do? How can you pivot, change, reintroduce new ideas into whatever it is that you're trying to achieve and come up with a better plan, Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Well, I think you're kind of trying to say, like, you have to know your limitations. Like, I'm not going to go out and start swimming and be an Olympic swimmer.
Right.
Like, it's not going to happen. But I know that going into it. I'm not going to be disappointed because that's not going to happen, because I know my limitations physically, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think you have to be realistic in what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
And then, like, you have to reevaluate. Like, it is okay to try things over and over and over again, but at some point you do have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm not the person to accomplish this in this way.
Yes.
Maybe I need to hire somebody to do this or something else. But I think you have to be able to look at yourself and evaluate yourself honestly and not have the rose-colored glasses on and think you can just do everything, because everybody's not good at everything.
Yeah.
So you just have to be able to take a true look at yourself and what you're trying to accomplish, and kind of know when to say, okay, and it's time to move on to something else.
Right. And that's growth. There's an opportunity of growth in all failures. There's a saying that goes, a season of failure is a time for sowing seeds for success, right? But you have to be able to, as you said, reevaluate, see what you need to change. And remember, whenever you fail, you're not starting from the beginning. Right? You're starting from the next step on the ladder. You're closer to wherever it is that you need to or want to reach. It's just that your steps may be different. They may be bigger. They may be smaller. They may involve somebody giving you a boost up, because this is just a step that you can't take on your own.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So embrace your season of failure, guys. I don't know what you've been facing lately. And if you are in that situation where it just feels like everything is going wrong, it's not working out, try and just reevaluate. Not even reevaluate, but what can you change? What needs to change? How can you fail better? How can you embrace that failure? And how can you continue failing more until you reach that point that you want to reach?
Love it. Thanks for listening to this episode of It Starts With Courage podcast with Kat and Jen. If you like this episode of the podcast, visit our website, iswcpodcast.com, for show notes and other cool things.